and we're going to make a knife. First thing I got to do is get this thing opened up, which is pretty tough. Even though it's hot, it's still pretty a substantial piece of metal. Just gotta get it opened up enough to get it in the hardy hole. So this thing did have a plastic coating on it that I burnt off. I was not in the garage when I did that. I just stuck it in the forge and let it burn. Now, I figure out how to hold this thing. Alright, so I'm still fumbling with this thing. Alright, now I think I'm getting somewhere. So I've been struggling with this thing. It is a piece of 3/4 inch coil spring, actually out of a small dump truck, one of those single axle dump trucks. It's the coil spring from the front. So it is pretty substantial. I think I'm to the point where I can start using the hammer, just getting it started with the paint. So I cut a full coil off. Normally I only cut a half a coil, but I just want to cut enough to straighten out enough material for a couple projects. So I probably won't use all this, but I am going to go ahead and get it all straightened out, and I'll get to the piece that we're going to use to make our knife, and then we'll get started. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit of the process of opening that coil up, especially this one this big. I know you can't see it because it has this yellow powder on it, which was a plastic coating that I burned off. But it was orange. It's still pretty tough to bend though. Alright, so I got it straightened out. So before I cut the stock I'm going to use, I'm going to kind of square up one end. This stock kind of falls in between two tongs that I have that can hold it. One set of tongs is too big and it's loose, and this set of tongs is a little bit too small and it's uncomfortable to hold. So I'm just going to taper down one end, and then I'll be able to hold the stock a little bit better when we get started making the knife. So I measured off 8 inches. I got a mark. So the side I squared up, that's going to be the side for the tang. And this side is going to be for the point. So using this hardy cut should put a nice taper to this, make it easier to forge out the point. So it's going to take a couple heats, but I'm going to get it cut off there. Alright, let's get the shape of the knife here. See which direction. I got a down angle, so I'm going to go ahead and start making this to the side. I'm going to take about a third of the knife, or third of the material, start making my blade. I've done this process a few times. I'm not going to say I've done it a lot, but I've done it a few times. I'm doing this a little bit different, because what I would find, the way I usually, had been doing it, is I take my guillotine tool and I isolate the bolster first thing. So that thins down a portion of the stock right in the middle. Then I have to come back and thin the rest out, which is going to be the blade. Then on the back side, which is going to be the tang. And it works, but you got to be careful, because doing it that way, you put a lot of stress on that thinned out part. You get up here in the front and you're forging the tip, and the tip is orange, red, and then it gets into black. And you can actually crack it because it's in the black and it's really thin. So I'm going to go ahead and start from the front and work my way back this time, and see how that works. Alright, so I'm kind of shaping in this tip while everything is thick. And as I thin it, I'll kind of refine the shape that I want. Alright, so I'm going to start to widen. At least a portion of the knife that I got flat here. Damn, the knife's getting longer, but it's not so much getting wider. Alright, so we're getting this point picked back up. At the same time, we're starting to get a taper started out to the point of the otherwise known as a distill taper. I really want to be careful not to forge too thin right now. I'm just in a black heat here, kind of taking out some lumps. I'm not really forging. All right. I think I'm to the point where I'm going to have to start to isolate that bolster so I can pull the rest of that blade down. So I'm going to go ahead and get the guillotine tool out and we'll do the front and see how it goes. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll start about right there. Let's see, maybe a little bit more because more likely it's going to be hidden tang. I'll come out a little bit. Depending on how your guillotine tool is set up, you want to be careful not to drive it down too deep and get too thin. Make sure I'm back in the same spot. I think my guillotine tool is pretty much bottomed out right there. And it leaves a line right here I gotta get out. And then we're gonna pull that metal down. Alright, so that kind of leaves like some proud in there that I gotta get out. And the trick is not to smash the isolation I just put in. So it's going to take some tippity taps until I can get that. Alright, so I'm going to try to start pulling it down some more, a little bit further back. Not up into that bolster yet. Alright, so I'm working back further and further. And this is just with the cross peen still. If you see that swell up at the top, that is going to have to go at some point. So it might be wise to start getting rid of that now. And it looks like we're getting a little bit off center too, so let's go ahead and take care of this. Get everything centered back up, see where we're at. Alright, so I'm going to hammer this back into itself. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense right now. Alright, so now I'm going to flatten that back down, and hopefully it should be straight. Alright, probably take one more heat on that. Alright, so turn this thing around. Take care of this correct way. So I'm going to work on getting that out. And before I go any further with the blade, I'm going to start to set up the bolster on the other side, on the tang side. So I'm going to go ahead and get this corrected first, get that little swoop out of it, while everything's still nice and thick. So I'm trying to get this transition on the top of the bolster to the blade. You can see like a little dip right here, and that's what I'm trying to get out. And I'm about there. I could have just left it in there and just ground it off, but that's going to make the blade a bit narrower. And I'm trying to use all the stock that I have. That actually don't look too bad. I actually kind of like the shape of that, but I think I might go ahead and heat it up and do some more wax on the anvil, try to get that tip down. Just more shaping. Trying to get some down curve in this thing. It is still really thick. Try to figure out what shape blade that I want as I go. So I think I got that hump there pretty much taken out. I got the tang moved up, where everything's gonna be nice and smooth across the top of the spine there. And now I gotta think about getting it back in the guillotine tool, and I'm gonna start to isolate the tang side. Leave the blade pretty much where it's at right now. It's right at about 1/4 inch thick, so there's still a lot of work to do there. But I think it's thin enough that I can isolate the tang. So I'm gonna flip it around and change tongs, get it back into the guillotine tool, and I'm thinking I'm gonna try to do a bolster into handle scales instead of a full hidden tang. Let me give that a try. I don't think I've ever done that. All right, so to even make it look right, I guess, I'm going to take a little bit more, probably just over 1 inch on my isolation for the bolster, so I can always file back. I'm not going to be able to add metal if I screw it up, but I can file back leave a little bit of extra metal there, you know, just for squaring up and stuff like that. And it kind of got on the diamond a little bit, and I'll take care of that as I go too. All right, so I'm not going to lie, getting that hump out of the top of the spine going into that bolster where I took that material and flattened it out. It actually took quite a few heats, and there's pretty much hitting it down this way, hitting it down this way, and just kind of get it to the point where I can move that tang up to the top of the spine, because it was kind of in the center. It's kind of in the center of the blade, and it kind of had like bulge on both sides, so that took quite a few heats, I'm not gonna lie. But it's just something you're gonna have to work through. Or I mean, if you're just happy with just grinding it off, you can do that too. I'm going to come back to the back of the spine, or the tang, kind of see what I got to work with here. I get it flattened out. I would like to get it widened out as well. Kind of see a nice palm swell developing, but kind of like to get it a bit wider out in the back. So let me see what I can do with my cross peen. I'm still going to have to come back up here with the guillotine tool again. All right, my cross peen in here. See how wide I can get this before it gets too thin. All right. When it starts to get red, spring steel gets a bit bouncy. All right, so I'm getting it wide. I got it wider. Now I'm going to go ahead and see if I can pull the handle out a little bit more, a long ways, and thin it down in the process. Not that it's going to wind up being that long. It may get ground off. I am trying to just thin it down a little bit. It's kind of where it's shaping up. So let's do a little bit more shaping on the handle. As we start to thin it down, I'm not really too concerned about the tang work per se in the forging. It's almost more economical to just go ahead and get it close and finish it off on the grinder. It's a lot faster. But I do want to get it close. I think we're getting there. It's going to be a distal taper in the tang too, so that's always a nice way to get a little bit of extra length out of your tang if you don't have enough material. You can put a distal taper in the tang. As long as it's flat, the handle scales will still meet up with no gaps. So, all right, so it's still quite a bit thick up here. Alright, so I'm going to move on from the tang. I'm going to get back up here and do the blade. Kind of get this finished off. Clean up this plunge line for the Intregral bolster. Kind of bring it back into center. It's not quite center. So it's just going to be a matter of some precision blows. Kind of bring all that back into where it needs to be. Alright, so do some cleanup work with the guillotine tool. Just right around the bolster transition. So let's finish shaping this blade. Get this thing done. Alright, so let's start to thin this blade down. And we're going to stretch it out a little bit. I still really like to get that point down a little bit. Not gonna let it get too thin though. Alright, now I'm gonna work my way up the blade. I'm trying to widen it right now. Not really beveling. Trying to pull it as wide as I can. All right, so getting this blade into its close to its final shape. Alright, so kind of where we're getting to be. Not a bad shape, still kind of thick, still a little bit wonky and crooked. Alright, so I'm still forging out this blade. As you can see, it's getting wider, getting longer, and it's getting thinner. It's going to be a full flat grind. It's kind of how I'm forging it in. I can't really, I don't want to get it too thin. I got to really think about stopping here soon. This is kind of where we're at. And of course there's a lot of grinding to be done here. I'm kind of getting to the point where it's too thin to try to correct anything. It's just going to be pretty much removed on the grinder. So I'm thinking maybe a couple more heats, a little bit more smoothing, and the forging is going to be done. I really just got to make sure everything's straightened out, and any wonky upsets, like there's a little upset in here, needs to be hammered out. Could be ground out, but I mean, we'll see. I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple more heats and just try to smooth this out a little bit. Alright, so it's actually the next weekend, and I stopped working on this last week. I just kind of ran out of time. Had some other stuff going on, and took it over to the belt sander, and I did a little bit of profiling just to kind of see where I was at. We're still really thick, so I'm going to go ahead and try to get a little bit more width out of the blade. And the tang is pretty much done. I'll probably just grind this down to the thickness that I want it. Then we'll do what we need to do so it'll accept the scales. But in this, the Intregral bolster is forged and looking pretty decent right now. It's a bunch of file work I got to do, but I'm gonna go ahead and do the final forging on this. We're gonna try to widen the blade out a little bit. Might get a little bit longer too. I don't know. We'll see. So I'm going to go ahead, get it in forged, get it hot, and get started again. Alright, so we're going to make this wider, hopefully. Alright, everything's cold, so it's got to get cool down quick. I'm going to do a few seams, getting this wider. Then we're going to get everything smoothed back down and be ready for a profile. Alright, so now I'm just smoothing everything out. And this will probably be the last scene. Before we go into the belt grinder for the final profile. So I'm just going to smooth everything back down, get everything straight, and yeah, get it ready for the grinder. Alrighty, so I'm going to stop the forging here. Just been doing some brushing, letting it normalize. And did a bunch of straightening in the vise. A whole bunch of tedious stuff that you don't need to see on camera. Just a bunch of repetitive tweaks. So this is ready to be profiled, and we'll go ahead and show you what it looks like after the profile, and probably 120 grit on the flats for the grind. So. And yeah, we'll bring you back when that's ready to go. All right, so here's the knife off the grinder, profiled. I got a full flat grind on the bevels. I got the Intregral bolster all shaped up. I got all the tang work done. And yeah, this thing is ready for, I'm gonna go ahead and do some hand sanding at 120. After that, it'll be ready for heat treat. And then after the heat treat, we'll finish it off, put the handle scales on it, all that good stuff. But that's not going to be this video. But you can continue to look for progress of this knife on my Instagram channel. And we'll go ahead and let y'all go. This is kind of what we wound up with. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for all the support. Like, share, subscribe. And check out the store on Etsy, of course. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.